the galaxy teetered on the edge of oblivion. The Unity Accord, a fragile coalition of diverse alien species, faced annihilation at the hands of the Hrokyn Swarm. These relentless invaders, a mass of biomechanical horrors, devoured entire star systems with mechanical precision and terrifying efficiency. Worlds once vibrant with life now lay in ruins, their remnants scattered across the void like forgotten memories. The Accord's advanced technologies and sophisticated diplomacy, which had maintained peace for centuries, now faltered against the Swarm's unyielding onslaught. In the Grand War Council, leaders from various species voiced their desperation. The Hrokyn's ability to adapt and regenerate made them nearly invincible. Strategies that once worked against lesser threats now seemed futile. Alien commanders debated endlessly, their voices tinged with fear and frustration. The Hrokyn's hive mind operated with a chilling coherence, making their attacks almost impossible to predict or counter. As hope dwindled, whispers of an ancient, almost mythical alliance with humanity began to circulate among the desperate leaders. Humanity had long been considered a wild card in interstellar politics. Stories of their fierce independence, emotional volatility, and unpredictable nature had earned them a reputation as both formidable allies and terrifying adversaries. The coalition was divided. Some saw the humans as the last hope, recalling ancient treaties that hinted at humanity's potential to turn the tide in desperate times. Others dismissed the notion, arguing that inviting such a chaotic species could spell further disaster. The debate was intense, with no clear consensus in sight. In a final act of desperation, Commander Voral, a respected leader from the crystalline species of Thalaxer, decided to reach out. He sent a coded message through the intergalactic communication networks, invoking the Forgotten Alliance with humanity. The message was clear and urgent. The Unity Accord was on the brink of collapse, and only humanity could provide the necessary force to repel the Hrokyn Swarm. It was a risky move, one that could either save countless lives or unleash an uncontrollable force upon the galaxy. Days passed with agonizing uncertainty. The coalition braced for the worst, preparing for a final stand against the Hrokyn's relentless advance. Then, unexpectedly, the message arrived. Humanity has responded. They are coming. The declaration sent a ripple of shock and awe through the council chambers. The leaders exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of their decision pressing down on them. The arrival of humans was not just a potential salvation, it was also a gamble with the unknown. As the countdown to humanity's arrival began, tensions within the coalition reached a boiling point. Trust was fragile, and skepticism loomed large. Yet, the alternative was clear: face annihilation without any hope of resistance. The decision was made. The coalition would accept humanity's aid, embracing the uncertainty that came with it. The message had been sent, and now they could only wait, hoping that the legendary, terrifying humans would prove to be the heroes they desperately needed. The anticipation was palpable as the first signs of the human fleet appeared on the outer horizons of the beleaguered coalition's territory. The Hrokyn Swarm, sensing the shift in power, intensified their attacks, determined to crush the coalition before any external force could intervene. The coalition's defenses, though formidable, were stretched thin, barely holding back the overwhelming tide of the swarm. In these final moments of desperation, humanity's arrival was the last beacon of hope, a flicker against the darkness threatening to consume them all. In the silent expanse of space, the stage was set for an unprecedented confrontation. The Unity Accord, on the brink of collapse, awaited the intervention of a species that was both feared and revered. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, resting on the promise of humanity's mysterious and formidable presence. As the countdown continued, the galaxy held its breath, uncertain if the terrifying humans would indeed come to the rescue, or if their arrival would herald an even greater catastrophe. The human fleet emerged from the darkness of space like predators stalking the void. Their ships were unlike anything the Coalition had ever seen, monolithic structures of dark metal, sharp edges, and utilitarian designs that radiated menace. They lacked the ornate beauty of coalition vessels or the organic fluidity of Hrokyn bioships. Instead, they seemed purpose-built for one thing: war. Their silent approach sent a chill through the coalition's ranks, a reminder of the unknown they had invited into their midst. The first transmission from the humans was brief and without ceremony. "This is Commander Elias of the Terran Fleet. We have received your request for aid. We are assuming control of this engagement." The message was as unsettling as it was efficient. No pleasantries, no acknowledgement of the coalition's leadership, just an assertion of dominance. The coalition's representatives exchanged uneasy glances, but made no objection. At this point, pride was a luxury they could not afford. The human presence was immediately overwhelming. Their ships positioned themselves with precision, establishing a defensive perimeter that seemed almost alive in its adaptability. Coalition officers, accustomed to elaborate strategy meetings and endless deliberations, watched in stunned silence as the humans executed their plans with an unnerving combination of speed and certainty. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing, only action. The first glimpse of the human soldiers was equally jarring. Unlike the towering, crystalline Thalaxer or the graceful, multi-limbed Vryn, humans appeared unremarkable at first glance. They were smaller, their bodies seemingly fragile compared to the imposing physiques of many coalition species. But there was something in their eyes, an intensity that was both captivating and unsettling. Their movements were precise, their demeanor cold and focused. Every gesture, every word seemed to carry the weight of a species that had fought for survival countless times before. Rumors spread quickly among the coalition ranks. Stories of human history, their wars, their unrelenting drive to conquer challenges that would break other species. Soldiers whispered of humanity's ability to adapt, to thrive in environments others deemed uninhabitable, and their capacity for destruction when pushed to the brink. To many, the humans were not saviors but harbingers of a different kind of chaos, one that might consume friend and foe alike. Despite their fears, the coalition could not ignore humanity's effectiveness. In a matter of hours, the humans had transformed the fractured defense lines into a cohesive network. Their technology was a strange mix of brute force and elegant simplicity. Coalition engineers marveled at the adaptability of human systems, which seemed to function equally well in scenarios that would cripple their own advanced machinery. Drones swarmed through the battlefield, guided by artificial intelligence that reacted faster than any organic mind could. Massive railguns fired projectiles at velocities that shattered Hrokyn bioships in single, devastating strikes. The battle erupted in a chaos that defied reason, the Hrokyn Swarm pouring forth with an endless ferocity that overwhelmed the coalition's most disciplined ranks. Yet, amidst the turmoil, the humans were not shaken. Where others hesitated, they surged forward, their movements precise and calculated, as if they thrived in the chaos. The swarm struck with overwhelming numbers, their ships blotting out stars as they descended on the coalition's defense lines. The alien forces struggled to hold, their advanced technology proving inadequate against the sheer brutality of the assault. But humanity had planned for this. Their tactics, brutal and unorthodox, unfolded like a deadly dance. Drones swarmed in synchronized waves, each maneuver designed to exploit the hive-mind coordination of the Hrokyn. Massive electromagnetic pulses rippled across the battlefield, frying the swarm's neural connections and disrupting their coordination. The humans fought with a kind of ferocity the coalition had never witnessed. Where a breach threatened to collapse the line, human ships diverted their firepower without waiting for orders, prioritizing survival over protocol. Entire squadrons of human pilots engaged in high-risk dogfights, drawing enemy ships away from vulnerable sectors. Coalition commanders could only watch in stunned silence as humans willingly placed themselves in impossible situations, their survival hinging on sheer ingenuity and an almost reckless confidence. On the ground, it was no different. The Hrokyn swarmed coalition positions, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm the fortified bunkers. Alien troops, used to defensive tactics, fell back in disarray, but human infantry held their ground. Clad in armor that adapted to the terrain, they moved with a brutal efficiency, their weapons unleashing precision strikes that shattered Hrokyn formations. Coalition soldiers, inspired by the human example, found themselves rallying under the leadership of these strange and terrifying allies. A pivotal moment came when the Hrokyn targeted an evacuation ship carrying thousands of civilians. The coalition forces hesitated, knowing that diverting resources to protect the ship would leave their flanks vulnerable. The decision weighed heavily, and for a moment, it seemed they would let the ship be sacrificed. But before the coalition could act, a squadron of human fighters broke formation and intercepted the Hrokyn assault. The maneuver was suicidal, the odds of survival slim at best. Yet the humans pressed on, their smaller ships weaving through the enemy like needles through fabric, buying just enough time for the evacuation ship to escape. The sacrifice was devastating. The human squadron was obliterated, their ships reduced to smoldering debris. But their actions had saved thousands of lives. Watching the evacuation ship disappear into the void, a coalition officer whispered what many were thinking. They didn't even hesitate. The battle raged on, and the humans continued to defy expectations. They adapted to every twist the Hrokyn threw at them, their tactics shifting as if they anticipated the enemy's next move. Their willingness to take risks, to make sacrifices that no coalition species would consider, turned the tide in ways no one had thought possible. But victory remained uncertain. The Hrokyn's sheer numbers were unrelenting, and despite humanity's ingenuity, the coalition forces were stretched to their limits. The battlefield became a graveyard of shattered ships and broken bodies, the weight of every decision etched into the void. As the swarm regrouped for another assault, the human commander's voice crackled through the comms, steady and unyielding. "This isn't over. We'll fight until it is." For the first time, the coalition understood the depth of humanity's resolve. They were not reckless. They were relentless. And in their relentlessness lay a terrifying strength, a strength that might just be enough to save them all. The battlefield was silent, save for the hum of burning wreckage and the faint, rhythmic pulse of Hrokyn ships regrouping in the distance. Humanity's forces had held the line, but barely. Coalition fleets were in shambles, their formations shattered, their weapons exhausted. The swarm, while momentarily disoriented, began to regroup with terrifying efficiency, their numbers still overwhelming. The coalition leaders looked to humanity for answers, but even the humans seemed stretched thin, their ships battered, their resources dwindling. Then came the announcement. A human transmission, calm and deliberate, cut through the static. "This is Commander Elias. Protocol Omega-7 is authorized. All allied forces are to fall back immediately." The coalition leaders demanded explanations, but Elias offered none. His tone carried a weight that silenced all questions. Reluctantly, the coalition fleets pulled back, leaving the humans alone at the forefront. As the coalition forces retreated, the humans deployed their final gambit, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Tiny pods, barely visible to the naked eye, began dispersing from human ships, spreading in waves across the battlefield. These were no ordinary weapons but self-replicating nanites, engineered to target and dismantle the biological and neural structures of the Hrokyn Swarm. The pods moved silently, imperceptibly, embedding themselves into the swarm's ships and soldiers. At first, there was no visible effect. The swarm continued to advance, their forces converging on the human fleet. Then, one by one, Hrokyn ships began to falter. Their organic hulls fractured, their movements became erratic, and their hive-mind coordination dissolved into chaos. On the ground, Hrokyn soldiers convulsed and collapsed as the nanites severed their neural links. What had been an unstoppable force mere moments ago now imploded under the weight of its own disarray. But the human's weapon was not without cost. The nanites did not distinguish between friend and foe in their destructive path. Human ships, caught too close to the swarm, began to fail as the nanites consumed their systems. Pilots and soldiers were forced to abandon their positions, retreating into the chaos they had unleashed. The battlefield became a graveyard of annihilation, the price of victory etched into every fragment of debris. When the last Hrokyn ship collapsed into lifeless silence, the coalition forces emerged from their retreat, their ships moving cautiously through the wreckage. The devastation was unlike anything they had imagined. The swarm was gone, utterly eradicated, but at a cost that left the coalition humbled and shaken. Among the survivors, a single human ship remained operational, its hull scarred and its systems barely functioning. From this vessel came a final transmission. Commander Elias's voice, calm and resolute, echoed through the coalition comms. "The swarm is finished. We've given you a chance to rebuild. Do not waste it. Humanity fights not for glory, but for the survival of all. Remember this moment, not for what we destroyed, but for what we saved." The human ship, barely holding together, turned and began its slow departure. Coalition ships watched in silence, their crews grappling with the enormity of what they had witnessed. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy. They had redefined what it meant to fight, to sacrifice, and to survive.